Hello, Star Trek fans, and welcome to the Rebinge Deep Space Nine podcast. My name is Kim.
And my name is James.
And we're watching Star Trek Deep Space Nine from the beginning, one episode at a time. Welcome back to the podcast. Today, we are on Season 3, Episode 19, Through the Looking Glass. This episode aired April 17th, 1995. Before we talk about this one, anything to say about the previous one, Distant Voices?
No, it was perfect.
Shortest episode in our history.
Yes, it really was.
Not just because of all the airplane breaks we had to remove, but we didn't have a ton to say about that episode.
And there was a lot of helicopters as well. Very noisy day.
Yeah.
Well, I do have one addition. I went back and rewatched it, and I am revising my rating.
Oh.
It is now a neutral.
Okay.
I think because it needed to stand on its own more. Yes, there's things that point to the future, but it should be able to stand, I think, more as an episode on its own. If you look at it in context of the episodes up to that point, it's pretty weak.
Yeah.
Something you said in the podcast kind of influenced me, which is the only things that in his brain are, oh, I could have been a tennis player, I could have been a doctor, and the girl I liked wasn't interested in me. That's all that's in his head. That is a little bit of first world problems.
Yeah.
So I'm going with a neutral. I mean, it wasn't actually bad. It just was a little weak.
I think I made my point on the podcast. I have nothing new to add.
Hey, it was barely a thumbs up.
Well, let's move on to this one.
Absolutely.
In Sisko's office, Odo is letting Sisko know that he's discovered Quark and Morn have 27 voles in Quark's storeroom, and they were painting numbers on their backs. Quark lies about it, but Sisko knows they're planning vole fights. Quark tries to blame Morn. I mean, he pretends like he's outraged, but Sisko tells Odo to get the voles off the station.
Oh, Quark was priceless. The way he immediately distances himself and says, "Do you think that was what Morn was up to?"
He's terrible. This scene is like at the beginning of Past Tense, where we just created a scene in order for Quark to get into the episode.
Oh.
It didn't really have any other meaning.
But it's nice that Morn wants to keep voles as pets.
Yeah, I think Quark was lying about that.
Oh.
So Sisko heads out of the office into Ops just as Miles comes up the elevator in a strange outfit. It's not his uniform and it's not his normal sexy outfit. It's blues and browns. I mean, it's nice. I like it.
Sisko should have figured out something was wrong here because Miles only has one set of civilian clothes.
Right. Well, Sisko does mention something about the way he's dressed and Miles just kind of shrugs it off.
Oh yeah, it's much nicer than his normal outfit.
He says he needs to talk to Sisko in private, and he waits for Odo and Quark to leave. And then Miles pulls out a phaser and tells Sisko to get on the transporter pad. And then he runs a little device over one of the consoles, and he tells the computer to energize on his signal. And Sisko and Miles beam away, landing on a small dark ship. It was surprisingly easy to kidnap the commander of the station.
Well, I think Sisko had had a long day at that point.
Yeah.
When he's walking away from the office, he has that look of, I am done with all this crap.
Yeah, for sure. But why didn't somebody else in Ops pull out Kira's phaser and shoot Miles in the back or something? I mean, nobody did anything. They just all stood there.
Well, because they've banned phasers from Ops because Kira keeps on shooting things.
After she shot the life support systems in civil defense.
Yes.
That's probably fair enough.
Also, honestly, that phaser Miles is holding, that is an awesome looking Star Trek weapon. It's got a really sort of futuristic Star Trek look to it.
Yeah. It had the general shape of a Bajoran phaser.
Yeah, but it was a little stylized. I thought it looked great.
Yeah.
I think I should make one.
For Comic-Con?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, sure.
I could totally pull off Miles's outfit.
You definitely could. Well, anyway, over on this small ship, when Sisko asks where they are, Miles says they've stepped through the looking glass, which is what Kira said in the first Mirrorverse episode. So you're already pretty sure what you're in for at this point.
They also do that darkened lighting thing as well.
Yeah, and we cue the theme song.
Personal opinion here. When they do these crossover episodes, I really think that they should change the opening to be a Mirror Universe opening. Like with Klingon and Cardassian ships around the station and the Empire logo.
I agree. I mean, they did that on Discovery.
Yeah.
Or even just make it look darker, because that's ultimately, when we go to the station, it's just darker.
I think this was a missed opportunity.
Yeah, it's very cool when they do that. They don't seem to mess with the credits on these older shows very often. Well, after the credits, we're inside the mirror ship, and everything is bathed in red light. Sisko immediately gets the drop on Miles and takes the phaser from him, but Miles says it doesn't matter because Sisko can't go back unless he reconfigures the transporter, and he's not going to do that. Sisko has already surmised he's in the parallel universe Kira and Bashir visited a year ago. Miles says ever since they left, he's been part of a rebellion against the Klingon-Cardassian alliance, a rebellion led by his version of Sisko, but the Cardassians blew up Mirror Sisko's ship, killing him. Miles doesn't intend to keep this Sisko here forever, he just needs help finishing the current mission. Sisko says he's not about to interfere in events going on in this universe, but Miles convinces him to just listen first and then decide.
Do you think this is because of the Prime Directive, that he doesn't want to get involved in the events in the Mirror Universe?
I'm not sure the Prime Directive exactly covers the Mirror Universe. Maybe they're taught that at school, because they're taught about this universe.
Right.
Maybe they're taught, if you do end up there, don't mess with things.
Yeah, maybe it's just good practice, because last time some of his crew were there, they ended up starting a whole rebellion.
Right, and the first visit started something really big when Kirk was there.
Right.
Well, now we learn about a Terran scientist working for the Alliance. She's close to completing a new transspectral sensor array. With that array, they'll have nowhere to hide, and they'll all be killed. Mirror Sisko was sure he could convince the scientist to change sides because the scientist was his wife. Miles pulls out a picture like an old-time paper picture, and Sisko is shocked to see his wife, Jennifer.
That was great.
Yep.
It's Jennifer.
Miles says he needs Sisko to help, otherwise the rebels will be forced to kill her. And Sisko says he can't let her die, not again.
Well, Miles is really surprised here because he asks, "You know her?"
I guess if you look at it from Miles' perspective, he doesn't have a lot of information about how the other universe works.
Oh, that's a good point.
But I thought it was funny here that once again, we're willing to interfere if it involves someone we like. It's like 2 seconds ago, I'm not doing this. Oh, it's for Jennifer? Yeah, okay. That was cute.
That's true. The way Sisko very calmly says, "I can't let her die, not again." If you don't find the way he delivers that just heartbreaking, you have no soul. It's so touchingly delivered by Sisko, and he's holding the photograph.
It's kind of quiet. Yeah.
It's perfect Star Trek emotion, and just delivered beautifully.
Yes. Well, now we go to a very dark Terok Nor, where Mirror Kira is having sexy time with two people who have no lines. They're just sitting there looking like they're at her beck and call.
Well, this is a little bit racy for 90s television. She appears to give the impression she might be bi.
She does, yeah. But only the guy is half naked. But yeah, she definitely gives that impression that she is also attracted to the woman. Her hair looks great in this scene, by the way. It's not all flat like it's been back in the other universe.
Well, they're still using product.
Right. They ran out of product back in the other universe. But also there are two guys in the back in very fancy costumes who are pulling gently on gold cords hanging from the ceiling.
Yes.
And it seems to just be barely moving two fans above them. The whole thing is quite a scene.
Are they Romulans or Vulcans?
Oh, I don't know. I did not pay enough attention.
I was wondering if they were Romulan, because they had bad haircuts.
This whole thing, it's quite a scene, and I can see where the inspiration for the Discovery Mirrorverse scenes come from.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really a lot like this, except with a bigger budget.
Right. It gives a very Romanesque kind of look to it. And I don't necessarily mean historically accurate Rome, but kind of the view of Rome you would see from movies.
Right. The movie version of it. There's so many scenes with Giorgio that are kind of like this.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. Again, I just see where Discovery calls back to Deep Space Nine, except with bigger budgets. Yeah.
Oh, very much so. Absolutely.
Well, in comes Mirror Jennifer, asking what Kira wants with her. Kira tells her that her husband is dead. She looks surprised, but not upset. She hasn't even seen him in 5 years.
Yeah.
She just wants to get back to work. She does say the killing needs to stop, and Kira says it will, as soon as the sensor array is completed. She says once that happens, she can continue pressing the Cardassians to be more reasonable to the Terrans.
Oh, dear.
And then she really creepily says, "Oh, you do believe me, don't you?" I'm not sure Jennifer does, and I don't think she should. But also, this doesn't sound like a great deal for Jennifer or the Terrans.
Right,
Like, if you let us kill all the Terrans, then we'll be nicer to the Terrans.
Oh, no. She very carefully says disarm them.
Yeah, right. She is not telling the truth.
Oh, gosh, no.
And I doubt that Jennifer thinks she is.
Do you think so?
Would you believe someone who delivered the message that way? You do believe me, don't you?
Maybe this is jumping to overanalysis a little too early, but I was wondering about Jennifer actually believing her because she's from a highly privileged section of Terran society that maybe haven't been exposed to the real nature of people within the Alliance.
To the treachery.
So why wouldn't she believe her?
Well, she just doesn't seem like a reliable source. I guess considering the setting that she's in and the way she delivers it, it just didn't feel very genuine, which was the point. But
maybe this Jennifer is very naive about the true nature of the world.
Maybe. Back on Miles' ship in the Badlands, Sisko is already in Mirror Sisko's clothes, saying he'll help get Jennifer away from the Alliance so that Miles can send him home. We didn't have a lot of time for debate. We needed Sisko to get on board fast.
He's ready to go.
Yeah. Miles says in some ways the rebellion is better off without Mirror Sisko. He knew how to fight, but that was all he was good at.
Yeah.
Then he tells Sisko that he should call him Smiley because that's what Mirror Sisko always called him. He's a little worried that Sisko isn't quite prepared, but there's no time to do more, so they beam into a cave full of rebels. What's
funny here is Miles is telling him all this just out in the open while he's walking around his ship. So I assume here that Miles's crew, or the crew on the ship who are loyal to Miles, know what's going on and are part of it.
But it's a good point. They did seem to just be talking very openly about it. I guess they were in on it.
Yeah, it didn't seem to be a secret.
Yeah, that's dangerous in this world.
Right.
Well, the rebels in the cave include Bashir with ridiculously long hair trying to look tough and complaining about Sisko not completing the mission. We also have Rom saying they should attack Terok Nor and blow it to pieces. And then a very familiar Mr. Tuvok stands up to disagree with this plan.
Yes, Tim Russ.
Logic dictates caution in the face of a superior enemy. Nice to see Tuvok.
My absolute favorite Vulcan in all of Star Trek.
Yeah.
He is in some of the best Voyager episodes as Tuvok.
They should have used him more, though. They didn't use him that much.
No.
Bashir seems to be taking charge, proposing smuggling explosives into the station to kill Jennifer. Tuvok says that's a suicide mission, just as Sisko and Miles enter, surprising everyone. This Sisko isn't quite as jovial as the mirror version of Sisko was.
Yeah.
But he does a good job getting everyone to laugh.
He's kind of trying to put on that Sisko that he played earlier.
Yes.
It's kind of funny watching Avery play a character he's played before, but sort of toning it down and almost making it appear like he's playing the character kind of badly. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, he's imitating himself. Yeah.
Right. But doing it slightly off.
Yeah. Then in comes Dax, giving Sisko a big kiss, saying she's missed him. And then she slaps his face for letting her think that he was dead. Miles quietly tells him that she's his mistress as we go into an ad break.
This scene really does seem to show some of the differences in the Mirror Universe. This version of Rom has a lot of backbone and is all ready to attack the station, even if it's a suicide mission.
Yeah, I like this version of Rom because this is, to me, what a Mirror version should be. It should be different from the other version.
Right.
Whereas sometimes the Cardassians seem like they're exactly the same.
Yeah, you're right. These people are truly the opposites of what they should be. The Bashir was interesting. Well, he just seemed to really just be Bashir with bad hair.
Yeah, his hair was out of control. Maybe he's a hockey player instead of a tennis player.
Oh, yeah. He does kind of have that 90s hockey player hair, doesn't he?
Yeah, but he has all his teeth, so...
Well, as far as we know,
as far as we could tell.
The rebels have a good dental plan.
Yeah.
And I think my final point in this scene, I'm fairly sure the script said lots of pirate laughter.
Yeah, I think you're right.
I mean, the bit where Sisko calls them all in and does that like arm movement to bring them all in and says they're frightened and they were like arr. I was waiting for at least one person to start talking like a pirate.
Arr.
In some ways the scene felt sort of larger than life, as if they were playing on that sort of pirate history of the Mirror Sisko.
Right.
Which to me really just sort of came off as almost goofy.
Yeah, that's true. They did actually call him a pirate, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and in this episode too, they say that. Right before the ad break here, Dax was leading Sisko away. And so when we come back, there's some making out as Sisko seems ready to just have at it with Mirror Dax, which I find very disturbing and also completely impossible to believe. And by the way, I'm just going to move on. I'm not going to sit here and talk about it. So next scene.
He was just playing the part.
Oh my God. Okay. Back on Terek Nor, Mirror Kira is yelling at Mirror Garak about productivity dropping in the ore processing center. Garak claims he's doing everything he can think of to improve productivity, including bribes and torture. Then they head together into ore processing, and Kira says random, unprovoked executions will keep the workforce alert and motivated, so she picks out a couple of Terran workers to start with.
I think this just goes to show how nasty she really is. Random executions.
Yeah, and Garak says she's a little cranky, and he wonders if it's because of Captain Sisko's death.
Oh.
Kira denies it has anything to do with her mood. Garak thinks Sisko's death and the completion of the array is going to end the rebellion. Kira thinks he's a little overconfident, and she saunters out, doing that slinky walk in her crazy tight leather outfit, and we get the view from the back.
Yes, we get to see the full leather Kira again here.
Yeah.
The clubbing outfit Kira.
Yeah, and I think the actress really enjoys doing that walk. Yeah, she puts a lot into it.
Well, all her movements in this episode are all very stylized.
True.
It's almost like she's made a very conscious decision to do very serpentine-like moves, very sort of snake-like.
Well, snake-like, I guess, is one way to say it. Or you could also look at it like she's kind of dancing a little bit.
Oh.
Yeah. I don't know how to describe it, but it's almost like a stereotype of how you would think a supervillain would behave.
Oh, right.
When you think about the sort of mustache twirling of like an old-time villain, this is almost like that, except kind of in a sexualized way where, you know, she's playing up the sexuality of her character quite a bit. And I don't know if that's what the script said to do or if that was the choice of the actor. I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's very deliberate. And it's also very specific to this character. You know, we don't see it in Kira in the other universe, but we definitely see it here.
I think one takeaway from this is Garak seems to be pretty certain the rebellion is about to collapse.
Well, it's that Cardassian confidence.
Yeah.
Oh, we're going to turn on that array and we've killed Sisko. It's all over. Yeah.
He buys into the propaganda a little bit.
Always. I just think that's his nature. But again, we're in the Mirrorverse, so shouldn't it be different? Right. Shouldn't he be more skeptical?
Shouldn't he be more cynical?
Now we go back to the caves, and Dax is in a sexy pose on the bed while Sisko studies Alliance patrol patterns on a little device that can't possibly show Alliance patrol patterns. It's just like little lights flashing.
Yeah.
She thinks all this fighting hasn't gotten them anywhere, and she's tired of living like this. She thinks they should just get a ship and get out of here, but Sisko isn't ready to give up just yet. She points out that once the array is done, he won't have a choice anymore.
She does seem to enjoy living life as a pirate.
She seems to like the clothes, and her hair is very different.
Yes.
But I don't know if she's enjoying living in the caves.
I think she lived probably a life of luxury or relative luxury as a pirate.
Yeah, and the caves aren't working for her.
Well, especially as they were effectively protected by the Intendant. She said they collect tribute for her, so they probably get a good cut of everything they can steal.
So are we supposed to believe that Dax was part of the original crew? We just didn't see her before?
Maybe.
Or he picked her up along the way, or...
I'm going to assume she was part of the original crew, or maybe she was part of an earlier crew with Sisko.
Okay.
But she does also, in the scene, notice that something's off, because Sisko says, "Are you sure these are correct?"
Right.
And she says, "Well, you're the one who collected them."
Right. He's like, "Oh, yeah, yeah, of course I did, yeah."
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
Yeah. Well, now we're back in the bigger cave with all of the rebels again.
It's a full meeting of the pirates.
Bashir is arguing against Sisko's plan to turn Jennifer because the Cardassians destroyed his ship before he even got close to the station, so he's clearly not competent at this. As Bashir is ranting, Miles whispers to Sisko that he should hit Bashir because that's what Mirror Sisko would do. So Sisko doesn't take much convincing and he turns around and punches him in the face. Dax takes out a phaser and asks who else disagrees with the captain. When Sisko tells her to put away the phaser, she's very confused, and she gives Miles that confused look, like, what kind of thing is going on here?
And the way she's looking at Miles, it's like, this isn't something the captain would do.
Right.
What's going on here? I like as well how she had his back. Soon as this started going off, she's got the gun out.
Right, yeah. Ram and Bashir say the only solution is to kill the scientist. Dax agrees killing her would be easier. Miles thinks they could use a scientist on the side of the rebellion. Sisko agrees that she's valuable and the rebellion needs her.
Yeah, he says, you tell him, Smiley, at least someone is using their brain.
And then he asks if anyone disagrees, and no one does.
It's kind of funny here. I would see this as a basic problem of the Mirror Sisko style of leadership. He basically is a pirate, almost like a comic book or movie version of one.
Right.
So all of his leadership would be based on intimidation.
Well, fighting, right? They make that point that the only thing he's good at is fighting.
Right.
Miles even said it earlier that the rebellion is probably better off without him.
Right, because the captain didn't really get on with anyone.
He's not strategic.
Yeah.
He's just a fighter. And in fact, that's what he told Kira, not Mirror Kira, but the regular Kira, in the previous Mirror episode where she was trying to kind of goad him into doing something. And he was like, yeah, you got the wrong guy. And, and he was right, but he still took a stand.
He was right, but also wrong.
Right.
I have a theory here as well, if you want to hear it.
Okay.
Based on the way Bashir is talking at the opening of this scene, it's actually Vantika.
Well, that's an interesting theory, because he was so melodramatic.
Exactly.
Hailing us. Remember that?
Right. So this Bashir is really Vantika.
Well, that could be. We go back to the dark station and Kira is getting some kind of a massage, which doesn't seem to involve any massaging. And it's more like somebody just running their fingers around her back. Garak has brought someone to give her info, and we see that Rom is working for both sides. He tells her Sisko is alive. Kira seems very happy to hear this news as you see just a little bit of a smile on her face.
So Rom has turned traitor.
Looks that way.
There's an old Vulcan saying, never trust a Ferengi.
Are you making that up?
I'm making that one up, yeah.
I see. Trusting a Ferengi is a big mistake.
In both universes.
Right.
Although, I'm probably being very unfair there, because if you remember, Quark was also a true mirror of he was helping the refugees and he was being selfless.
That's true.
And it ended up killing him.
Yes.
So, maybe in this universe, the Ferengi are actually pretty decent people.
Well, right now he looks like a traitor.
Yes. Well, let's say some of the Ferengi are.
Yeah. We go back to Miles' ship, and Sisko is telling Miles to stop scratching his neck. They don't tell us what that's about, but we assume it's some kind of implant in Miles' neck.
Oh, I don't know. It could have been lice. I mean, the Rebels does not look like a very great living environment. That they're all in the caves.
That's right.
I'm thinking lice at this point.
A lot of close quarters. Yeah.
Yeah.
It'd spread really quickly.
It probably smells pretty bad there as well.
Yeah, I'm sure the caves do not smell fresh. Miles thinks Sisko is doing a good job faking his way through being Mirror Sisko, but the real test will be Jennifer. And also he says to remember that she looks like his wife, but she's a different person.
It's interesting that Miles would say that, considering how he and the alternative Miles really share similar skills.
They share similar skills, but they have very different backgrounds, I guess was the point. He says this Jennifer came from a privileged family that cooperated with the Alliance.
Okay. That ties back to my point of if she was, maybe she was very naive about the true nature of the Alliance.
Yeah. Sisko says his Jennifer was one of the kindest people he's ever known. Miles doesn't think he should get his hopes up too high for their reunion. And then there's an energy disturbance detected as a bunch of Cardassian and Klingon ships decloak around them. Uh-oh. Into the ad break.
So both the Klingons and the Cardassians have cloaking technology.
Well, I guess if there's an alliance, that would make sense.
Yeah, they share things.
You wouldn't think those two would share things, but
no.
Apparently they do.
Yeah, I would see it very much as like a marriage of convenience.
Right.
They needed to defeat the Terran Empire, so they worked together, but I wouldn't see much love lost.
Exactly. So Miles and Sisko are brought to Terok Nor, where Sisko grabs Kira immediately and kisses her, which Garak finds disturbing.
Yes.
Kira says she's still going to kill him. Then she taunts Miles for a while, asking why he betrayed everyone who is good to him. When Miles says he just wanted to be free, Kira scoffs. She says, you were born a slave and you'll die a slave, and she sends him to ore processing. I mean, she was going to kill him in the last episode.
Right.
So I'm surprised she would just put him back to work.
I think because she wanted to make him suffer first.
Maybe. Also, I think she's a bit of a narcissist, and
A bit?
And she wants everyone to love her. Maybe she thinks that she can get Miles to love her again, and, you know, she can make use of his skills because she keeps calling him the Tinkerer.
Right.
And maybe she thinks he's going to go back to fixing things.
Well, that's a good point.
I mean, she's so brutal, but she's not trigger happy. She's not quick to kill anybody. Garak asks what to do with Sisko, and before she can answer, Sisko says to take him to the Intendant's quarters so she can decide what to do with him. Kira finds this amusing. Garak is outraged and starts shouting demands, but Kira stops him, reminding him who is in charge. She says he'll die when she says he dies and not a moment before. And we take another opportunity for her to do her slinky walk away from the camera.
Yes.
And we get another shot of her backside.
Well, I think a huge part of this is Kira really enjoys humiliating Garak.
Yes, definitely. She dislikes Garak more than she likes anything else.
Yeah. Which makes me wonder, and I don't think I brought this up the last time we encountered this Garak. In this universe, Garak is exiled too. He's been sent to Tarak Nor to report to the Intendant as a humiliation, as another exile, because, she treats him basically badly and reminds him he's a subordinate, which must absolutely infuriate a Cardassian of his stature.
Yeah, I don't know. I hadn't thought about that, but I'm trying to remember in that episode, did we learn that there was no Cardassian occupation of Bajor? And that it was actually something different. Somebody else had occupied Bajor.
Yeah, it was the Terran Empire had occupied Bajor. And Bajor was now part of the Alliance.
If that's true, it's hard to see this as the same kind of punishment because they were looking at the Bajorans as lesser. Mm-hmm. And if they're not looking at them the same way here, then this wouldn't be the same kind of punishment.
Well, my take would be that the Cardassians still see themselves as intellectually superior to everyone.
Right.
So having him report to Kira would see that as somebody lesser than the Cardassians?
Oh, I think that they think everyone else is lesser. I'm saying it's not quite the same level of punishment.
Right.
I mean, it's probably still a punishment.
It's more like a crappy assignment rather than an actual punishment.
It's a little bit like Sisko going to Deep Space Nine, the broken down space station at the beginning of season 1. Before there was a wormhole and before it became an important location.
That's not true at all.
Well, now we're in Kira's quarters chatting. Kira says the only reason she can think of to keep Sisko alive is that it infuriates Garak. Sisko asks what she wants in return for keeping him alive, and she says all she's ever wanted is his loyalty. This is very similar to what she was saying in the previous episode, where all she wanted from the other Kira was her love and, devotion.
She wants him to be her strong right arm. And I think that really points to, was that she wanted him as her muscle. This was somebody, probably one of the very few people she could actually trust because it was mutually beneficial. And with him gone, there's now this gap. She doesn't have someone she can trust as muscle.
Right. Yeah, there's no one looking out for her except her.
Right.
And she can't protect herself necessarily from Garak.
Exactly.
But also I think she does just want adoration. Somehow this makes her feel better about herself.
Yeah.
That's that narcissist thing.
Oh, yeah. Maybe she really does believe these people love her.
I think she does. Well, anyway, she says she's pretty sure she can't trust him anymore. So she'll have to dispose of him eventually. She says she needs to think about things and she leaves him alone in her quarters. Later, Garak brings in Jennifer to see Sisko. He's a little glossy-eyed as he looks at her, but she's not as thrilled to see him.
No.
She calls him self-absorbed and egotistical, pointing out that he cheated on her and he loved his ship more than her. And eventually he ran off to play pirate for the Intendant.
So this Sisko, in a lot of ways, was the original Captain Kirk.
Because he just loved all the girls?
Yeah, well, he loved all the girls and his ship.
Okay. She asks if he knows how much death and destruction he's caused. Sisko says he's fighting to free our people, but she thinks he's just fighting because he likes to fight.
Right, repeating what Miles had mentioned earlier.
She thinks he's making it worse, and she's glad he's been captured. He says he hasn't been captured. He came here to rescue her. She is very surprised by this, and we go to an ad break.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
I think it wonderfully captures both the mirror Sisko and the real Sisko, the sort of idiotic bravado of the mirror Sisko, and also that Starfleet do the right thing aspect. The logical thing to do here would be to kill Jennifer. She's a threat to the rebellion. She's working with the enemy. And he puts both Miles and his life on the line to save her. And I think that is very non-mirror Sisko. And I think he would probably do that for other people as well, not just Jennifer. But Jennifer sort of underlines it.
Well, but the other Sisko was also planning to turn her and not to kill her. So there was something there.
As far as we know, I wouldn't trust the other Sisko.
I see. Well, after the ad, she says she's not going anywhere. She's doing everything she can to end the rebellion and the bloodshed. He thinks she's going to get them all killed, but she's bought into the propaganda that the rebels are the ones doing the killing, and if they put down their weapons, they can negotiate an end to the violence.
She just wants a peaceful settlement.
She does, but I think she's kidding herself. She isn't impressed with his speech, saying he's never cared about anyone but himself before. He tries to convince her that he's changed. She says she wishes they'd never met, and he says he wishes things were better between them.
Oh,
yeah, it's kind of sad.
I think this Sisko is pretty upset about how badly the mirror Sisko behaved towards Jennifer, knowing that at heart, this really is the same Jennifer.
Right. Well, she certainly looks and sounds like her.
Yeah.
Sisko asks why she's working for the Alliance, which she never answers. He says freedom is a whole lot better than slavery, and he puts his hand on top of hers, saying, think about it. And then he taps the back of his neck, sending some kind of message to O'Brien down in ore processing. She realizes he has a subdermal communicator, and he says it's courtesy of the Ferengi.
Well, that's a relief. It wasn't lice.
Yes, true.
I think we are supposed to be picking up that Jennifer realizes something is wrong. That moment when he's talking to her and he just touches her hand.
Yeah, that was different.
She has a look of sort of surprise. What exactly is up with Sisko?
Yeah, maybe that was the first clue.
Yeah.
Down in ore processing, Miles gets the message and he breaks away from his work because Odo isn't there to watch like a hawk like he was in the previous episode.
Yes.
He opens a panel and starts tinkering. Meanwhile, Sisko takes out his Klingon guards and grabs their phasers.
Oh.
He asks Jennifer if she's coming with him and says it's her choice. She agrees, but she says, as long as we're clear that I still hate you.
Oh, this was fabulous. Sisko comes out, takes out the two Klingons, and then he stands there in the middle of the corridor with both the Klingon phasers.
Yeah.
This was such a great look here. And then when he says to Jennifer, I need an answer, and she asks, do I have a choice? And his response where he says, of course you have a choice. From the look on her face, that was another point of Sisko's not somebody who asks. The mirror Sisko is not a pleasant person.
Right.
He would knock you out and drag you out of there.
Yeah, another clue for sure. I don't know that she thinks that he's a different person, but she might think that the rebellion and the fighting has changed him or impacted him in some way because he's clearly not acting the way she expects. Well, a Cardassian sees what Miles is doing and kind of yells at him. He says he's rerouting the central ODN processor on the Intendant's orders. The Cardassian does not think so, but when he gets close to Miles, Miles punches him in the head, knocking him out. And then when the lights flicker and someone else yells at Miles, he grabs the Cardassian's phaser and starts shooting. The other workers also attack the guards. Miles yells for anyone who wants to get out to follow him, and everyone runs after him.
Couple of things here.
Yeah.
I wonder if the Cardassians, if a large part of their military is basically the dumb lunk segment.
Oh, yeah, like we were saying, this wouldn't be a great posting.
This guy's like, oh, what are you doing? Let me get up close. Miles knocks him out.
Plus, I also wonder how much brain damage is happening down in ore processing.
Oh, could be.
Are they getting appropriate medical care and medication to avoid, whatever they're inhaling causing brain damage or lung damage?
Right, so it might be actually injuring the Cardassians at the same time.
Yeah, like lead poisoning.
So they don't start off dumb as a brush. They just end up there.
Yeah, they just do. Yeah, exactly.
Also, breaking out the workers from the ore processing is kind of a good idea because, number one, you'll get potentially a number of fighters to help you in the rebellion. And secondly, if you're trying to cover your escape, there's a lot of cannon fodder to get shot at.
There's a lot of cannon fodder, and a couple of them do get shot.
If I was being cynical, I'd say it's a very good plan.
I think Miles has the best intentions.
I think he does. Yeah, I think you're right.
Sisko and Jennifer are walking quickly, not running, down a hallway. Sisko says they have to get to airlock 7 before the security systems are reactivated. So then why are you walking? Oh my God, you need to run.
They can't run. The sets aren't very big.
Yeah. They get into a phaser fight with some guards and end up trapped, but Miles and his friends appear to help. So they all head to the airlock, but when they get there, they find Rom hanging from the door with some kind of weapon through his chest.
Yeah, Jennifer says, something tells me that's not part of your plan.
Definitely not.
And I feel bad for Rom. He was standing up for Quark and ends up getting killed as well.
They end up cornered again, and this time Kira appears shouting to them. She says it was a good idea to make it look like one of his men had betrayed him so that they could get aboard the station, which I guess means Rom.
Yeah.
I totally missed this the first time I watched it. I was very confused by why they killed Rom, but then it was like, oh, okay, that was part of the plan. He didn't really betray them.
No.
Yeah, he was like a mole.
He was one of the good guys.
Yeah. She says she was completely fooled by this plan, but not Garak. Kira says, your ship is locked down, your pilot is dead, there's no escape. Jennifer proposes a trade to Sisko. She says she'll stay and maybe they'll let him live. But Sisko isn't interested in this plan. He's like, I came a long way to get you, and I'm not giving up. And again, this is confusing her even more.
Yes, that whole scene, she's just giving him this really strange look.
Yes.
I guess because this is so different from the other Sisko. He would trade Jennifer. He'd trade anything to get his own freedom and save his own neck.
Right. Sisko asks Miles how far it is to ore processing, but we don't see what happens from here. Now we see Garak sending in the guards, but they find that Sisko and everyone has somehow disappeared. So I don't know what we're supposed to believe they did.
I'm going to give some credit to Garak here, because he actually joins his troops. He's not frightened to get his hands dirty in combat.
That's true. Kira says Sisko always makes things difficult, and Garak says it's one of his least endearing qualities. I really like that little scene.
Oh.
So somehow we've all broken back into ore processing, and Miles seals the doors behind them. Sisko tells Jennifer he's going to get her out of there, and she says she believes him. He starts poking around on one of the panels, and Miles wonders what he's up to. He says he knows what he's doing. He just hopes that this Terracnor was built by the same Cardassian who built his Terracnor. Now all of the guards arrive at the door of ore processing, and Kira is thrilled because there's no way out of there. As they get the doors open, Kira says Sisko has disappointed her for the last time. Once inside, everyone is just standing around. Kira is relieved to see Jennifer is still alive, and she says her husband will never annoy her again. But Jennifer says for the first time in her life, Sisko is actually making sense to her. Kira sighs, saying he can be very persuasive.
Well, you also see there's a change in Jennifer, because she actually finally stands up for the Terrans.
Yeah, definitely. She says, I'm a Terran at this point. And then Kira says to take Jennifer and kill everyone else. But of course, Sisko has a plan. It doesn't make a ton of sense, honestly, that Kira wouldn't just shoot everyone at this point.
Yeah.
Kira says she made a mistake by not killing Sisko sooner, and he agrees, saying he has started the station's self-destruct sequence, and he's not going to disarm it until she lets them all go.
Nice one.
Kira tries to disengage the self-destruct sequence, but her code doesn't work, and Sisko shrugs and says, I changed it.
Sisko seems to actually enjoy having the upper hand here.
Yeah, he definitely was pleased with himself.
I don't know if he was still playing Mirror Sisko or just really taking some pleasure in getting one up on this awful Kira and Garak.
I think he was enjoying himself.
Yeah, I think so.
Garak says he's bluffing, but Kira knows he's not bluffing. She says, this isn't over, Benjamin. I will hunt you down. Sisko says she's welcome to try.
Oh, nice.
So Sisko and the rebels all walk out of ore processing.
Oh, this is great, Kira. You can just see how absolutely full of raw hatred she is. Nana really does a great job of bringing this character to life.
Yeah, she's very cranky.
Oh, yeah.
But it happened to her in that previous episode, too, where she overtrusted and it got her in trouble. Yeah. So I'm surprised that she would overtrust or not overprotect herself. I don't know. She just seemed to leave herself vulnerable by not doing something about Sisko. I guess we're supposed to believe that she's too attracted to him.
Well, and I think maybe your point from earlier that she does believe that people really love her.
Yeah, so I guess she could be really believing that he's going to come around and be her right hand. Yeah, good point. We go back to the caves in the Badlands, and Sisko finds Dax and Jennifer chatting. Dax says they have a lot in common. Everyone leaves Jennifer and Sisko alone. He says he's going to visit the Romulans to see if he can convince them to help the rebellion. But Jennifer has figured out that he's not really the Sisko she married, and he's not really going to visit the Romulans.
Oh, yeah. He says he has so much to tell her, but doesn't know where to start. And she replies with, why don't you start telling me what happened to my husband?
Right.
So she's no dummy. She's figured out it's not Sisko, and the other Sisko's dead.
Yeah, she seems to have figured it out. And he doesn't tell her because that would not be a good use of time at this point.
No.
He says that she can ask Smiley.
He'll fill you in.
He asks what she's going to do now, and she says she's sure Smiley will find something to keep her busy. And then they talk about how Smiley seems like he's a good man.
Right.
She thanks him for rescuing her, and they say goodbye. He tells Smiley to take him home. The end.
You got to feel bad for Sisko there.
That he had to leave her behind.
Again.
But at least he knows she's alive.
That's true, even if it is a different version.
Right. So do you have overanalysis for us?
Yes, I might have a little overanalysis to talk about here. So first thing, and this is an observation, and I find it kind of funny, there are so many low camera angles.
Yes, and they did that a lot in the previous episode too, in the Mirrorverse, so maybe that is just their way of showing that's where they are.
Right, all these sort of low shots from the floor.
Yeah, because they don't have all of those really dramatic outfits and things that are so different on Discovery. Yeah. You know, all the capes.
Right.
They have a few different outfits, like Kira is wearing a crazy outfit, but
Yep.
Garak is just wearing a Cardassian uniform, so it's not that different.
Yeah.
So I think they need something to differentiate it. One of the things is they make it darker, and also they have all the red lights on the ships. But
Right.
yeah, maybe the lower camera angle is the other thing that they do.
Personally, I like it. I think it's a nice little touch.
Yeah.
Okay, next point. So I'm wondering, if Kira had lived some kind of privileged life, maybe had been born into a family of collaborators with the Cardassians, this would be more like Kira in the regular universe. That some of these aspects of that Kira are Kira, end of story. In the same way as Garak in the Mirror universe is pretty much Garak.
Well, what's interesting is, I think in Discovery, part of the point is that they keep telling you how brutal that universe is.
Yeah.
I'm sorry I keep bringing up Discovery, but that's the Mirror universe. That's the only version of it I've ever known before this. So this
Right.
is all new to me, right? But they talk about the brutality of it quite a bit. And if you think about, then that would also mean that this Mirror Kira has also been through some kind of brutality.
Yeah.
And Kira in the other universe was through a different kind of brutality where it maybe wasn't that everything was so brutal, but she lived a brutal life because of the Cardassians.
Yeah.
So you could almost argue then that she might already have gone through some of the things that Mirror Kira or that somebody in that universe would have gone through, but she has still made different choices in her life.
Yeah.
And she has still come out differently. Also, of course, she's had some different influences on her life. She's had some positive leadership, but she's also had some negative leadership. So I'm not sure that she would be radically different in just a different kind of brutality. But at the same time, it's so hard to say, oh, she would turn out like this.
Yeah.
Because it appears that morals are different, within her society, and everybody around her is different. So it's a tough one to say.
Yeah. We don't know enough of the story.
I'm not sure she would turn out like this overly sexual version of Kira.
Yeah. And extremely brutal.
And also, what makes her such a narcissist? Does she have that in her background as well? It seems not.
Yeah. Yeah.
Instead, she actually had the opposite, where being sort of having the boot of the Cardassians on you to make you feel lesser would actually have the opposite effect.
Interesting. Okay. I like that answer.
Okay.
Next thing.
Yeah.
It's funny you should mention Discovery, but I feel there are parallels between season 3 of Discovery and this episode. The scientist working for basically
Definitely.
people who are really bad,
Yeah.
but blinding themselves
Able to justify it.
the reality, because they found a way of justifying it to themselves. Again, we're
Yeah.
seeing another parallel with Discovery and Deep Space Nine.
Yeah, I can't believe nobody's ever told me that before, or I've not seen anybody mention it before, but
Yeah.
there are so many links back. And if you are a big Deep Space Nine fan and you have not watched Discovery, you should,
Yes.
because there really are some similarities.
Next thing.
Yeah.
I think this episode as well clearly demonstrates that the Mirror Miles is at the very least as technically competent as the Prime Miles.
Yeah.
So this really points me in the direction of the Mirror universe is very much environment rather than the people being different.
Yeah, it's almost like they can't make up their minds.
Yeah. True.
Because sometimes they're the opposite and sometimes they're really kind of the same.
And that's why I think it's environment. I'm leaning towards that.
This Miles is really not that different from our other Miles. In the beginning, in the previous episode,
Yeah.
he was very cautious, very afraid because of what he'd been going through, but he seems to just kind of evolved into Miles.
Right.
Yeah.
Next thing.
Yeah.
And this I get from the pirates in the cave scene.
Okay.
You see a lot of different races within the rebellion,
Yes.
including Tim Russ as an alternative Tuvok.
Yep.
So,
I'd have watched a whole episode of Mirror Tuvok.
oh God, yeah. Absolutely.
There's a missed opportunity.
Yeah. I'm assuming the Klingon-Cardassian alliance is pretty much like the older Terran Empire. It's just as bad for everybody who's not a Klingon or a Cardassian, or one of the few approved races like the Bajorans. So it's sort of, here comes the new boss, same as the old boss.
Right. Yeah. You're either in or you're not.
And everyone else is basically oppressed in the same way.
Yeah.
And I think my final point in this overanalysis is
Yep.
I really want to know more about the Romulans.
Yeah.
Because wouldn't it be really cool if the Romulans in the Mirror universe were really the Mirror. They were like the Federation.
Yeah.
They were some egalitarian democracy that believed
Totally.
in justice and decency, and they weren't backstabbing plotters.
Totally.
And Sisko going to see them was basically like asking for help from the Federation in the main universe. I would just like to really see more of the Romulans.
Yeah, the implication in all of the Mirrorverses that we've seen so far is that there really is no good. I can't remember where or when somebody said there's no hope in that universe.
Yeah.
And if there's nothing to look forward to, you know what? It was Sisko. He said there was no faith. There was nothing to have faith in the previous episode.
Yeah.
And so if there's nothing positive to look to, nothing that's better than what you're already in, then it would always be desperation all the time. It would always be about just protecting yourself. But I mean, the universe is vast. They can't all be like that. It's hard to believe that they're all like this, but we only see a little tiny sliver of what happens.
Yeah, that's why it would be really awesome for the Romulans to not just be the good guys, but be the really good guys.
Yeah, that would be very interesting. I assume we don't get that, though.
But no.
Yeah. Otherwise, you wouldn't be telling me how badly you want it. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
And I think that wraps it up for me.
Well, I just have a couple of overanalysis points.
Oh, go for it.
One is that Sisko is so unperturbed by it all. My first time through, I thought that seemed really strange.
Yeah.
That he just sort of took it in his stride. He never really overreacted to anything. He was just like, oh, okay, guess I'm in the Mirrorverse. No big deal. Oh, my wife's alive? Okay. Well, then I thought a little bit more about it, and I thought about how Kirk reacted in the Mirrorverse.
Yeah.
And he just was slotted right in. It's like, oh, okay.
Just
Things
rolled
are
with
different.
it.
I got a different uniform on. Exactly. Just rolled with it because he was smart enough to know that he was in danger if he didn't.
Yes.
And I guess you could look at it the same way, that Sisko's just like, okay, got to roll with it. Also, there's a thing in Star Trek where they get into these crazy situations, not just in the Mirrorverse, but everybody just kind of keeps acting normally and keeps trying to solve the problem and get out of it.
Right.
There's no space for panic. And if they did panic every time something crazy happened, the show would not be what it is.
Oh, yeah.
So, I guess it makes sense that he took it in stride. The thing about his wife, though, seemed a little different. I think he would have been more impacted than he was. That, to me, seemed, yes, he made a decision to stay and help because of her, but also he just seemed so sort of cool about it. It's like they didn't quite take the opportunity for the emotional impact. They focused on something else, and they kind of put that to the side.
Yes. At the beginning, when he's holding the photo, that was a fantastic scene. And you could see
short.
that. Yeah. But it was, right. It was so short. And you could see that emotion coming out there of what Sisko felt, which was just, if you didn't like that, you don't have a heart. And
I liked it. I just thought it was too short.
And they didn't build on that.
Right. Exactly. I wish they had. My next point is, why is Jennifer working for the Alliance? They never said.
Okay. Here's my headcanon on this.
Okay.
It's because she had, as Kira said, she had a privileged upbringing. She had maybe a background where her family, her environment was very much sheltered from the negative aspects of the Alliance. Maybe she's part of a ruling class within the Alliance that live an idealized lifestyle that includes Cardassians and Klingons that are far away from the harsh brutality. So if you're like, she buys into the propaganda, and somebody like the Intendant could exploit it by saying, oh, I'm just going to bring peace. I'm not going to really kill them.
Yeah.
And she believes that. And plus, maybe the other side of it as well is she chooses not to see the brutality. Oh, the people who are treated badly, they deserve it.
Like the people outside of the sanctuary districts in past tense.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Just like that.
Okay, I'll buy your headcanon.
Thank you.
So Miles can just beam people in and out of the other universe now?
I'm guessing so.
That's what I'm supposed to believe? No biggie?
No biggie.
Okay. I did expect both Jennifer and Miles to die in this episode.
Really?
I was so surprised that at the end they were both alive. Yeah, I thought at least one of them would get it, but both alive at the end. So that was a surprise.
Wow.
All right, well, let's go to women in the future.
Absolutely.
And can you guess that I'm not happy with things that went on in this episode?
I'm guessing maybe you didn't like the portrayal of Dax.
This is a fantasy of the writers again, where the women are just fawning over the men. It also implies that this is the fantasy of the male characters as well, which doesn't set them in a great light either. It's gross. So much could have been done with Dax here, but no, what a waste. We had to give like a sexy shot of her on the bed, running her hand down her body. It's like, God, come on.
Yeah, I get you.
I almost feel like whoever wrote this or shot this or conceived of this was like getting back at her for fighting that sort of, sexualized image of her on this show.
It's like a deliberate choice to do that to the character, to humiliate.
Exactly. It's a deliberate choice. It's the costumes, the way they show Kira from the back, how many times. I mean, it's funny once to watch that slinky walk, but after a while, it's trying to show something else. It's making a point.
Yeah.
Dax has one purpose, and Sisko doesn't do anything about it. He's like, oh, cool. Doesn't really count. Things that happen in the Mirrorverse stay in the Mirrorverse. I really didn't like that, and I thought that was out of character for Sisko.
Yeah.
Remember what happened in the episode where Dax was in love with him because of the thing that was going on with Loaxana? Yes. He was really uncomfortable with that and avoided it and stopped it at all costs and was very happy when it ended.
Right.
So now it's like, it's okay here?
I will say that's kind of crappy writing. They could have made it more of a life and death situation rather than, oh, hey, this'll be fun.
Exactly. Instead, it's almost like a holosuite program for fun.
Yes. Good take, yeah.
So that's my women in the future section. I think women were very badly treated in this episode, and I didn't like it. Okay, well, let's go to rating. Thumbs up, thumbs down, or neutral. What is your rating?
I'm giving it a thumbs up because despite the negatives, I really enjoyed this episode. It was showing off a lot of Sisko. There were a lot of scenes in it where I thought the visuals were really enjoyable, like Sisko standing with the two phasers.
Well, you love Sisko.
And I like Miles. Yeah. And evil Kira is just such a delight. She's so nasty. I mean, even if you exclude the clubbing outfit, she's still just a great character.
Yeah, I mean, for the most part, I enjoyed those things too, but I can't give a thumbs up to this episode because I don't like the treatment of women in it, and I think it's such a step backwards. I didn't talk about Jennifer in the Women in the Future section, but Jennifer was bad. The acting was not great. Her story was weak, but the whole basis of this episode was that she's the only one who can complete this transspectral array.
Yeah.
So she's supposed to be this genius scientist.
Yeah.
Seriously, nobody else can finish it? This whole episode was just an excuse for Sisko to see Jennifer. And then they fell flat on the emotional component of it, which was the thing. Yeah. The thing that I have liked during the season in various episodes is when that emotional component has come up to the surface. Like in Heart of Stone, the emotions of that were amazing. And in this episode, they have the greatest opportunity for the emotional component, and they don't use it. Mm-hmm. Instead, he's off making out with Dax. This is a real misstep. This entire episode to me is like a mistake. I would like to wipe it from my memory banks and pretend like it never happened. As much as I like the Mirror Universe, this really irritated me.
Clearly.
Yeah.
You're not giving it a thumbs up then.
A thumbs down. Way down. This was terrible.
Wow. Not even a neutral.
Oh my God, no. Too terrible. Too insulting to women to be neutral. Absolutely not.
2 thumbs down. Wow.
They take my scientist and what do they do with her? They should be embarrassed. Anyway. In summary, I did not enjoy this 46 minutes of television.
Yes.
I thought I would. I was so excited that we were going to the Mirrorverse, and then I was like, oh, why are you doing this to me?
Oh, dear.
I'm sorry.
It's fine. You don't have to like it.
You seem to enjoy it. I did not.
Don't be sorry.
Well, I hate bagging on things you like.
So, in summary, you did not see much merit in this episode.
Oh. If they had focused on the emotions of him and him having to really do something to rescue Jennifer, and you actually saw in him what it meant to save her and to have her alive somewhere. And also, if he had even had a flash of a thought to take her back to the other universe or to stay there with her, but he didn't.
Yeah.
It wasn't emotional enough. It was a bummer.
That's an interesting point, why he didn't want to bring her back.
The fact that he didn't even consider it is weird.
Well, you could have expanded her character by him giving her the offer and her saying, no, I need to stay and help my people.
Yeah, easy. In that last scene, they easily could have done that.
Yeah.
But nope,
Yeah, because you get a whole Sisko almost reliving losing Jennifer a second time.
We'd rather have another butt shot of Kira.
In her clubbing outfit.
Come on. Okay. Have we finished this episode?
Well, I think you have finished beating up on this episode.
I actually thought I was pretty nice to it, considering what I could have said and what I've said about things in the past. I held back.
Yes, I think we've wrapped it up.
All right, that is it for Season 3, Episode 19. Come back next week for Episode 20. In the meantime, if you'd like to send us your own overanalysis of this or any episode, or if you just want to say something nice, please email us at rebingeit@gmail.com or tweet us at rebingeit. You can also find us on Instagram at rebingeit. You can also check us out on talkthroughmedia.com. You can leave feedback there on individual episodes, and you can listen to the other podcasts in our network.
Thanks for joining us on the Rebinge Deep Space Nine podcast.
That's it for me.
And that's it from me.